areas. Whenever we talk of education, the first question that comes up in anyone's mind is, what are we going to teach? What areas are we going to cover? How much will not be too much to teach at a particular time? And so we have to focus on what we are going to cover, how much of each of the what we are going to cover, and how far, into what depth are we going to cover those various areas. So even under the Islamic perspective of education, the ideology of Islam gives us certain areas to teach under, and here they are. The first one at the top is character building. What character building really is teaching values and morals. How do you lead a good life? How do you treat yourself and others? And moral education is critical because it helps you become a better individual, a better citizen, and a better person in the long run. Civic sense is important. Without civic sense, it would be difficult to survive in society. And so, under this character building approach, we would be doing civic responsibilities and duties, because a lot of times we like to see the privileges. What will I get if I behave well? But what do I do to behave well? We don't want to answer. So if we want privileges, we should also be willing to look at duties and responsibilities. And that's what that teaches. The next area is physical education. We would like to have healthy, active people who are constructive contributors to society. People who are lethargic, slow, and unhealthy, not well, are not good contributors to society. So if we want individuals to be living a healthy life, they will have to be physically fit. This encompasses sports, games, athletics, and any other physical activity that young people are involved in. What this also teaches them is cooperation, sharing, because a lot of sports and games are played as teams. Some sports are played as individual events, but most of them are not. And so there's a lot of good learning that happens here. Another thing that is focused under here is health. How do you live a nice, healthy life? What kind of food do you eat? What is your diet comprised of? How much rest and sleep you need? All that contributes in total to make you physically fit. And all that is part of physical education. The next area is mental education. What we focus on here is the development of the mind, the brain. Now that is the basis of education. But how does an individual develop his capacity to think, to use his brain? It happens when in education we make the individual be embedded in critical thinking, creative thinking, analytical thinking, lateral thinking, thinking outside the box through activities that enable the individuals to problem solve, come to decisions, make their opinions and recommendations, share their ideas. Only when we force students to think for themselves will this mental education actually prove to be meaningful and fruitful. The next area is life education. What this does is, education is not an 8 to 2 or a morning to afternoon activity. Education happens even outside the school and the classroom or the institute. It happens informally, it happens at home, it happens at gatherings, it happens in the marketplace. And so learning through those other informal experiences is also essential for young people. If you only limited education to what happens within a classroom, people wouldn't learn as much, because a classroom in its true sense is an artificial setting. Nowhere else do we put 40-some students in a room with an adult and expect something to happen. And so, if learning for life has to happen, it should also happen outside the classroom and the school setting. The next area is social education. This is critical, especially in the 21st century. We cannot live on our own alone. we will not be able to survive, because we will not be able to do all and everything for ourselves. We need other people to help us live this life. And in that sense, social interaction is important. What this piece of education teaches is things like cooperation, tolerance, sharing, listening, not only thinking about yourself, but thinking about others around you, in your immediate family, in your community, in your society, in this entire world. And with the virtual world becoming more and more of a reality today, and the world shrinking to a global village scenario, I think it is more important for individuals today to be socially adept at how you interact with individuals in your own cultural setting and in other cultural settings. The other area is sex education, and what this is not in the sense of love and romance. This is in the sense of how do you deal with individuals of the opposite gender. When you're with your friends and you're all boys or all girls, you behave differently. But when you're in a mixed gathering, you behave differently, or at least you should behave differently. This is what sex education here should teach. How do you behave and interact with individuals of the opposite gender in a manner that is respectful, pleasant, tolerant, and shows that you care for one another. The last area is Muslim faith education, which really is religious education. And we need people to understand what their religion helps them learn, understand, and do. So, in the Islamic perspective, this would involve the teachings of the Quran, the Hadith, the fiqh, the dealings of the caliphs and other Muslim philosophers, and all that should be taught to young people. How have we gotten to where we are through the Islamic perspective, beliefs, teachings, practices today? We are seen in the world as quite unpleasant, but that is not true. We are not unpleasant at all, and if we want the world to see the pleasant side of us, I think this is what we will have to teach young children to follow in the footsteps of what their religion teaches them. And in this case, it would be Islam.